Good evening, and welcome to the Midnight Engineer. Tonight we travel back to a time before cities glowed, before streets stayed awake, and before electricity quietly reshaped the night. This is the story of how humans learned to guide light, how engineers illuminated streets, factories, and homes, and how the modern city slowly learned to stay awake after dark. You don't need to stay alert. Just listen. Let the history unfold gently and rest as the engineers once worked, deep into the night. Before electricity entered homes, before streets glowed through the night, humanity lived with darkness as a constant companion. But electricity was never invented in a single moment. It was noticed, questioned, slowly understood. As early as ancient Greece, around 600 BCE, a philosopher named Thales of Miletus observed something unusual. When amber was rubbed with wool, it attracted small feathers and dust. This quiet phenomenon had no name yet, but it was the first recorded interaction with static electricity. Thales did not call himself an engineer. The word did not exist. But curiosity was already doing engineering's work. Observation before explanation. For centuries, electricity remained a curiosity. No wires, no systems, no control. Knowledge slept, waiting for tools and patience to catch up. In the 17th century, a physician named William Gilbert changed something fundamental. While studying magnetism in England, he coined a new word, electricus. Electricity finally had a language, and once something is named, it becomes easier to study and harder to ignore. Gilbert understood that electricity was different from magnetism, not visible, not constant, but responsive. Still, nothing practical came from it yet. Electricity remained confined to laboratories and candlelit rooms of thinkers. Then came Benjamin Franklin, Philadelphia, 1752. Franklin did not discover electricity. He proved its nature. Lightning was not divine punishment. It was electrical. The famous kite experiment, dangerous by modern standards, connected the sky to human understanding. Electricity became part of nature. But knowledge alone does not light cities. The real transformation began in the late 18th century. In Italy, a physician named Luigi Galvani noticed something unexpected. Frog legs, connected by metal, twitched. Life responded to electricity. Movement obeyed it. Soon after, Alessandro Volta challenged Galvani's explanation and built the first electric battery in 1800. For the first time, electricity could be generated on demand, controlled. This changed everything, slowly. Early electric light was not gentle. Humphrey Davy in England demonstrated the first electric arc lamp in 1802. It was bright, extremely bright, too bright. Arc lamps hissed, they dazzled, they frightened, but they proved something vital. Electricity could replace flame. Night could be engineered. Cities noticed. By the mid-1800s, gas lamps still ruled the streets. They were warm but dangerous, explosive, labor-intensive. Electricity offered cleanliness and distance. Power could be generated elsewhere and delivered silently. This idea rested quietly, waiting for infrastructure. Then came Thomas Edison, New York, 1882. The Pearl Street Station lit parts of Manhattan, not brilliantly, but steadily. For the first time, electric lighting entered a city system. No longer experimental, no longer isolated. Urban night was changing shape. London followed, Paris followed, Berlin followed. Streets extended their usefulness, shops stayed open, factories lengthened shifts. But sleep began to retreat. Light had consequences. We will pause here. In the next section, we will walk through the first electrified cities, how grids formed, why AC and DC mattered, and how engineers quietly reshaped human rhythm, one street lamp at a time. Electricity did not arrive everywhere at once. It entered cities slowly, carefully, street by street. In the early 19th century, cities were still ruled by gaslight. Tall iron lamps lined the streets of London and Paris. Each one had to be lit by hand every evening, every night. Gaslight brought warmth, but it also brought danger. Leaks, explosions, fire. Entire neighborhoods depended on open flame. Electric light promised something different. No fire at the street corner, no smoke, no daily lighting ritual. Just light, arriving quietly from a distance. At first, electric light appeared in public spaces, train stations, theaters, large halls, places where brightness mattered more than comfort. Arc lamps were the first to arrive. They were powerful, almost violent, white, buzzing, bright enough to turn night into day. In Paris, arc lamps were installed along major boulevards in the late 1870s. People gathered beneath them, not to sleep, but to watch. Night had become a spectacle. Yet arc lamps were never meant for homes. They were too intense, too unstable, too loud. Cities needed something softer, something domestic. That softness arrived through refinement, through patience, through repeated failure. Thomas Edison's work was not just about inventing a bulb. Others had done that before. Glass bulbs existed, filaments existed, electric current existed. What Edison understood was systems. Light alone meant nothing. Light had to be reliable, predictable, replaceable. In 1882, On Pearl Street in Manhattan, Edison opened one of the world's first commercial power stations. Steam engines turned generators. Copper wires ran beneath the streets. Homes and businesses received power from a central source. Only a small part of New York was lit, but the idea was complete. Electricity had left the laboratory. It had entered the city. London followed soon after. So did Berlin. So did Milan. Power stations appeared near rivers and rail lines, always close to fuel, always close to demand. Early electric grids were fragile. Wires overheated. Insulation failed. Generators broke down. Electricity was still learning how to behave, and engineers were learning how to live with it. One of the most important debates of the era was invisible to the public. Alternating current, direct current, AC, DC. Edison supported direct current, low voltage, short distances, local networks. Nikola Tesla believed the future belonged to alternating current, higher voltage, long-distance transmission, efficient distribution. George Westinghouse supported Tesla's ideas. Power could be generated far from the city, at waterfalls, in remote stations, and sent safely across long distances. This changed everything. Cities no longer needed power plants at every corner. Energy could travel, silently, invisibly. The first large-scale alternating current system lit the Chicago World's Fair in 1893. Thousands of lights, all at once, a city within a city, glowing through the night. For visitors, it felt unreal. For engineers, it felt inevitable. The night had been solved. But light does more than illuminate streets. It changes time. Before electric lighting, cities slept together. Shutters closed, candles burned out, darkness spread evenly. With electricity, sleep became optional. Factories extended shifts. Shops stayed open. Officers learned to ignore sunset. Urban time began to separate from natural time. Clocks replaced daylight. Schedules replaced rhythm. Some welcomed this. Others resisted. Doctors warned of exhaustion. Writers spoke of restless cities. Engineers quietly continued building. By the early 20th century, electric street lighting was common in major cities. Smaller towns followed. Rural areas waited longer, but the direction was clear. Electricity was no longer a marvel. It was infrastructure, hidden, expected, unnoticed. Street lights became softer, more yellow, more human, designed not to impress, but to comfort. Cities learned how bright they wanted to be, and where darkness still belonged. The night was no longer absolute, but it was not defeated either. it was reshaped. This balance between light and rest would remain an engineering challenge, even today. We will pause for a moment. The streets are lit. The buildings are quiet. Power flows steadily beneath the ground. In the final part, we will step into the modern world, where electricity became continuous, where grids grew vast, and where engineers began asking a new question. Not how to create light, but how much light a sleeping world truly needs. By the early 20th century, electricity had settled into daily life, not as a miracle, not as a novelty, but as an expectation. Lights turned on when switches were pressed. Machines responded instantly. Cities trusted that power would be there. This trust required something new: continuity. Early power systems were local. A neighborhood plant, a small service area, limited reach, limited risk. But growing cities demanded scale. Factories expanded. Subways moved underground. Hospitals depended on constant power. Electricity could no longer pause, even at night. Engineers began building interconnected networks. Separate stations linked together. Load shared. Failures isolated. This was the beginning of the modern electrical grid. A system designed not for brilliance, but for reliability. Power plants diversified. Coal, hydroelectric. Later, oil and gas. Energy sources spread across regions. Connected by long transmission lines, high voltage lines carried electricity quietly across landscapes. Over rivers, through forests, across empty land, transformers became essential. Voltage stepped up. Voltage stepped down. Power adjusted itself to distance and need. These systems worked best when unseen, when unnoticed, when stable. Engineers developed control rooms, panels filled with gauges, needles trembling slightly, responding to demand. Nighttime became predictable. Electric load dropped, factories slowed, homes slept, but cities never fully rested again. Streetlights stayed on, hospitals stayed awake, transportation continued. The night shifted from silence to low hum. In the mid-20th century, electric lighting changed again. Fluorescent lamps entered offices and factories. Efficient, cool, unforgiving, cities grew brighter. Interiors ignored sunrise and sunset. Work followed, clocks alone. Some engineers began questioning this, not technically, but biologically. Studies showed human sleep patterns changing. Exposure to constant light delayed rest. Shift work altered health. Night lost its boundary. Still, expansion continued. Electricity powered communication, radio, television, later computers. By the late 20th century, cities were awake by design. Servers ran through the night. Data flowed continuously. Power demand flattened. Electric grids adapted once more. Automation increased. Digital monitoring replaced analog dials. Failures predicted before they occurred. Redundancy became the goal. Backup systems, emergency generation, multiple paths for power to flow. Darkness was no longer allowed to surprise a city. But outside the city, the story was different. Rural electrification took longer. Especially in large countries, engineers stretched networks carefully, balancing cost and distance. When electric light finally reached isolated homes, it changed routines deeply. Evenings extended, education expanded. Radio connected distant places to shared time. Electricity unified experience. Night became similar everywhere. In recent decades, another shift began.
light-emitting diodes, LEDs, efficient, programmable, everywhere. Streetlights grew smarter, brighter when needed, dimmer when not. Cities experimented with darker nights once again. Modern engineers now face an unusual challenge. Too much light. Light pollution hides stars, disrupts sleeps, confuses animals, burns energy without purpose. Some cities respond by redesigning night. Lower intensity, warmer color, focused illumination, a quiet correction. Electricity has completed a full circle, from rare curiosity to overwhelming presence to something that must be restrained. Engineers now work not to defeat darkness, but to invite it back carefully. The modern city sleeps differently, not completely, but deliberately. Power flows constantly beneath the streets, silent, steady, trusted, and most people never think about it, which is the greatest success of engineering. Electricity is no longer the story. Life shaped by it is. As the night deepens, lights soften, loads reduce. The grid breathes easier. Somewhere, an engineer monitors the system, not to create light, but to maintain balance. And in that quiet vigilance, electricity finally rests. This concludes our journey, from sparks and curiosity to cities that glow through the night, and to the systems that quietly decide when the world should sleep. Good night.